Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called What Do Dutch Europeans Think of Americans? So hopefully they only think good things. I am a little scared though. I'm a little skeptical. Sometimes I know Americans can be viewed as a little negatively outside, obviously, you know, the US. So I don't know. Hopefully it's going to be good things. But let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
Waar denk je aan bij Amerika?
Een gemeenschap wat onder een steen leeft. Dus ze hebben heel erg hun eigen wereldje. En ik denk dat ze niet helemaal af en toe het idee hebben wat er in de buitenwereld speelt.
Een verdeeld land.
Hoe bedoel je dat?
Nou ja, je hebt natuurlijk de Democraten en de Republikeinen en die staan lijnrecht tegenover elkaar. En die hebben eigenlijk heel veel moeite om samen een democratie met elkaar te leven.
Die scheur tussen de Republikeinen en Democraten die wordt zo onoverzichtelijk groot. En dat wordt gevaarlijk.
Donald Trump, chaos, crisis.
Trump.
Oh, oké, well, sure.
Wat Trump ervan gemaakt heeft. Maar die heeft natuurlijk mensen die dat zien zitten. En daar schaam je je gewoon voor.
Zou je naar Amerika willen?
Ik ben er geweest een paar keer en ik dacht echt van nee, dit zou geen land zijn waar ik zou willen leven.
You know what?
Vroeger had ik nog wel eens naar Amerika gewild, maar nu heb ik er geen zin meer in.
Ik ben gewoon niet heel erg fan van Amerika.
Oh my God,
En ook niet ooit heen willen. Nee, trek me gewoon niet echt aan.
Waar denk je nog meer aan bij Amerika?
Schoolshootings, een beetje veel mensen met geweren.
Iedereen kan een wapen kopen. Dus zeggen wij altijd van, nou, we zijn heel blij dat we in Nederland wonen. Waar dat niet het geval is. Racisme vind ik
Obviously it is. Obviously gun violence is it's a pretty big problem.
daar heel heftig.
Ik denk dat je daar toch meer segregatie hebt.
De extreme verschillen tussen arm en rijk.
Blank en zwart en Chinees en dat soort dingen.
Kan je Amerika?
I'm wondering if in the Netherlands everyone sort of lives in under one sort of community on one banner and those kind of separations do not really happen. You know, curious.
Accent nadoen.
I think I'm an American.
Well, I'm trying a little bit.
I think you do it very well.
Thank you, my brother.
En wat als je aan eigenschappen denkt van de mensen?
I love that the default sort of American accent is the southern, vaguely southern U.S. accent of, I'm protecting my rights.
Ze daar.
Ja, ze zijn wat luidruchtiger dan Europeanen, vind ik.
Ik denk dat ze heel erg in zichzelf gekeerd zijn en zichzelf een beetje superieur vinden.
Dus ik denk wel dat er veel mensen zijn die misschien wat minder slim zijn in Amerika. Als je gewoon kijkt naar de filmpjes en de dingen die je online ziet.
Oh, well, yes.
Ja, fastfood. Slechte levensstijl. Daar denk ik aan.
Obesitas.
Okay.
Overgewicht, mensen die te veel eten. En,
Wat mij opviel was de enorme omvang van de mensen. En die enorme zulke bekers cola. Als je naar de movies ging, dat je dan dat popcorn, dat je denkt, hoe krijgen ze het naar binnen? Ja. Niet te geloven.
Alles is super groot.
Alles is super groot.
Alles heeft
Everything's bigger in the US.
Obesitas size.
Ja, de gebouwen al. Zijn er ook dingen die je echt leuk vindt in Amerika? Of die uit Amerika komen?
Exactly.
Nee, eerlijk gezegd niet.
En is er ook nog iets wat je leuk vindt aan Amerika? Iets wat uit Amerika komt? Of?
Ja, ik vind wel de manier waarop de mensen daar leven. Dat je eigenlijk heel veel eigen zeggenschap hebt. Zelf je dingen moet regelen. Zelf beslist welke kant je op wil gaan. Als je een eigen bedrijf wil starten, dat je veel meer mogelijkheden hebt.
En Harley Davidson komt er vandaan. Dat is een droom van iedereen, denk ik. Om die een keer te bezitten. Muziek, cultuur.
En wat is je favoriete Amerikaanse artiest?
Bob Dylan.
Ja, klassiek.
Waar ik echt aan moet denken is toch wel echt de filmbranche.
Wij zijn altijd, al onze vakanties hebben we gedaan op de fiets door Frankrijk. Dus vertrekken hier in Alkmaar neergewaard en eindigen in de Pyreneeën. En dat kan je natuurlijk in Amerika natuurlijk ook.
Ja.
Wat ik wel heel leuk vind aan Amerikanen, dat als je kijkt naar sportwedstrijden, als je dan beelden van tribunes ziet, dan zie je supporters van de verschillende clubs door elkaar heen zitten. Ja. En dan zie je dat ze dat echt samen beleven. Heel vriendschappelijk, zeg maar. En dat is prachtig.
Dat klopt.
I don't know how friendly it is, especially depending on the sport, but I think he's right. I think in Europe, when it comes to sports, people are literally, they'll fight. They'll probably, again, it's dangerous.
Dat is ook wel een verschil als je hier tussen Ajax en Feyenoord kijkt en je kijkt daar tussen twee grote teams in de...
Lighter.
Ja, die slaan elkaar niet de hersens in.
Exactly. It's less violent.
Ja, hier in Nederland wel. Maar daar heb je ook de hooligans voor die gewoon gaan vechten.
Ja.
Ik denk dan meer aan die meiden. Dat ik denk van, Dus je hebt het over sport, over de cheerleaders en zo. Dat vind ik heel erg slecht dat het op de middelbare scholen zo wordt gepromoot voor het perfecte lichaam. Dat sport daar aan gelinkt is. Terwijl sport te maken heeft met je gewoon fijn in je lijf. Weet je, al die dikke billen en vet uit je billenzuig komt daar ook vandaan. Dat vind ik ook heel slecht.
Hoe zijn Nederland en Amerika anders?
Ik ben van de zomer naar Amerika geweest. Maar het is anders. Als je dan een ander kanaal als kijkt op YouTube. Van Just for Bikes. Die dan het verschil omschrijft. Dan zie ik toch wel inderdaad. Je kan nergens komen zonder auto. Als je hier kijkt heb je gewoon een binnenstad. Je hebt winkels. Daar heb je alleen maar woonwijken. Grote woonwijken. Geen winkelcenters, geen cultuur. Het is gewoon in de auto stappen. Half uur rijden. En er staat een winkelcentrum met 1 grote parkeerplaats. Het is niet mijn land.
Dat het hier gewoon allemaal best wel klein is. En dat het daar allemaal heel groot is. Heel anders bijvoorbeeld dan Amsterdam.
Ik denk dat wij Nederlanders wat rechter voor hun raap zijn. Ja. Dus we zijn wat harder, wat feller.
Exemplified by this video, everyone's being very direct and honest.
Wij zijn veel nuchterder. We zijn niet zo met geld bezig. Niet minder in ieder geval. Daar wil iedereen rijk worden en dat soort dingen. En het is hier gewoon allemaal beter georganiseerd.
En politiek is ook wel een heel groot verschil natuurlijk.
Onze ziektewet is allemaal wat beter geregeld dan bij hun. Bij ons is de standaard dat je je premies betaalt om naar het ziekenhuis te kunnen. En daar is het volgens mij een keuze.
Ja, en daar kan je er ook best wel snel buitenballen al.
Ja.
Kan je een Amerikaans accent naar doen.
Hey, you fucking bastard.
That was good.
Dat kan je goed zijn. Doei doei.
Then they were going to spring up a Boston or New York rat. Wow, this was eye-opening, but it was good. It was good. I thought it was going to be harsher. There were some very direct, but you know, I think all in all, I thought it was going to be worse. It wasn't that bad, I think. There's just, again, they're being quite honest. I think a lot of these things are, I wouldn't argue with them. Obviously, you can't sort of argue against an opinion because they're their opinions. And it's sort of, well, if that's how you think, I'm not going to be able to change that because that's how your mind goes. So I think it's really, it's sort of weird. I think the concept of just, what do you think? I don't really know. But I think I actually agree with a lot of things. I don't think a lot of people would argue with a lot of the things that they said. They were just speaking facts. It wasn't exactly opinions. It was sort of, great point. Because it's the reality. It wasn't so much as an opinion as it was an actual thing that happens. One of the things that I'm actually struck by is how many of them were saying, obviously politically, I don't really know how old this video is, but obviously the Trump of it all makes sense. Obviously, president of the US, it's going to have a huge, and the US in general, it's going to have a huge impact on, whatever it is that you are in the world. It's going to have an impact. So, of course, the president of the US is someone that's probably going to be, in the minds of a lot of people just because it affects so many lives, because the US is obviously a huge country and it has a lot of influence. So I get a lot of people were Trump, which, okay. And obviously, besides, being the president of the US, a very particular character. So I think it's fair that it's on your mind and you're thinking about this. But, they were talking about the two-party system, the Democrats and Republicans, and they were saying, how divided everyone is, and how the rift between those kind of parties is just getting, it's getting bigger. Which obviously I agree. I think politically it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which side you sort of lean towards. It's really, I think it's quite, I don't know, it's quite controversial. I think, if you go one way or you go to the other, it's sort of to the point with, I don't know, I think a lot of people probably feel like this. As in, you can't find a balance because everything's so incredibly divided and sort of, to the extreme. I think in this day and age, I don't think it used to be like that, previously in the past. But I think in recent years, as in, recent years, it's not 2 years, but I think just, it's a trend. That, and I probably would have thought maybe this happens, I think, all over the world, including obviously the Netherlands. But, the way that we're speaking about this, it makes me think it's really not that common over there. Because I think usually in a lot of countries, you have a two-party system. usually, again, I know that in Europe it's a little bit more complicated and it's not necessarily like this, as in it's just two parties. They have a lot of other political parties, but usually, obviously, there's periods of times in which, they lean towards one, they lean towards right. Other times they lean towards the left. It's whatever, and they sort of switch, they back and forth, as they should, right? That's democracy. You're switching, there's periods of time in which, you switch, and, the country, as a country, a territory switches. But I think it's probably a little bit less extreme, as in probably you have other family members that are, they vote for other parties. You have friends that vote for other parties. I would like to know, because I think it would be a really great sort of, I don't know, obviously probably those studies must exist, that I would have liked to see, a video of, hey, you asking couples, for instance, or just people in general, everyone has families, whether that's, partners, kids, siblings, parents, whatever, and friends, obviously between your circle of friends. Do you have friends that are, whatever it is that you lean, because I know some people are just sort of, I vote for whatever, fancies me in this particular election, I'm taking a look and I'm voting for this. Or I know that some people are, no, historically, I belong, not technically belong, because sometimes you're not registered, but it's sort of, no, I vote for this political party because, they align with my thoughts, my beliefs, whatever. But I would like to ask people, specifically in this case, because this is the Netherlands. Okay, so between, your own family, your own circle, you have your political party in which you maybe historically have been linked towards. Do the people surround you, as in, again, friends and family, do they vote the same way as you do, or you cohabit peacefully, as in, yes, maybe, my partner votes in another direction, they lean towards another thing, my kids lean towards another thing, my parents are maybe similar, again, whatever. But it's just a thing about, there's a lot of variety in between, in your own circle, within your own circle, or it's more about, no, to be honest, probably, again, you can't choose family, so maybe, no, but it's not as if I'm cutting ties with, family members because they are not leaning, they have different political beliefs, which I think is quite common in the US. So I would like to, again, I would love to know how it's like that, because I think that thing's been increasingly common in the US, which, you're very within your own circle, and everyone that surrounds you and people that you sort of surround yourself with, they all have the same sort of political beliefs. And I do not know if that happens, specifically in the Netherlands. And I think it would be quite an interesting sort of contrast to check. Do over there, is it normal, as in I can still sort of have a life with you, even though you don't really support, or you don't really see, changes that, you don't see the world as I do, maybe, again, politically speaking. I think it would be very interesting because, from what I could tell, it's really not the case, and everyone sort of has another, you vote one party, your best friend has to vote for another thing, and it's fine. That doesn't really changes the relationship. Again, from people that, this very small sample in which I think it was Amsterdam that they were talking to people. But I think it's just, I find it very curious, because otherwise I would have thought, isn't this always the case? As in, you try to just surround yourself with people that kind of have the same sort of similar beliefs that you do. But again, because in this day and age, everything's sort of taken to one extreme, whether, both sides, it's really hard to find something that's a little bit of a balanced and nuanced view. So it's sort of, no, yeah, I'm staying within my lane and you're staying within in the other lane, which is crazy. And of course, the two-party system, I don't really know how it is in the Netherlands, but again, I would have thought maybe a lot of countries have, it's an unconscious thing that happens. You have two parties, whether that is, they're leaning towards whatever, but it always is like that. It's always two parties that go and you sort of switch back and forth between periods. But maybe again, in the Netherlands, it's different. Obviously, I know that it's going to be different because they have the kings. They have a king, and, to begin with, it's a completely different party system than in the US. But I think, again, quite food for thought. The other, it's obviously about the culture. They were, some of them, a guy was very, as in, they're dumb. They're not that smart. Which, okay, that's a little harsh. I think, of course, if you see online, that's the stereotype and that's the cliche. But I think the US is huge. So yes, of course, there's going to be dumb people, but maybe it's not about dumbness in particular. I think probably people are talking more about uncultured. I think that would be the right word. And uncultured as in maybe a little bit ignorant. That's not necessarily having to do with how smart you are. Some people maybe are quite cultured and they are not quite knowledgeable. Maybe they're not that smart. Although, again, you kind of get into a slippery slope. What does being smart actually means? I don't know. Some people, maybe you're really good at math. You're great at doing numbers. Not really. I mean, some people are not that great at numbers, but maybe they're smarter in other ways. So I think measuring how smart someone is, I think it's a little bit hard. But I don't know. I think maybe I disagree a little with that guy. As in, yeah, I get that's the stereotype. But I think in a country as big as the US, of course you're gonna have, the rotten apples are going to be they're going to be more attractive, from the outside because it's quite newsworthy. As in, oh my god, I can't believe people are that dumb. But it's not specifically they're dumb. It's just again the educational system has failed them. So I don't know. They're just ignorant and not necessarily not smart. I mean, I guess I can probably go to the Netherlands and find dumb people as well, and dumb people, or maybe a little bit people that maybe are not that knowledgeable or not that, again, cultured. And that happens also in the UK, and that happens in whatever other country. There's smart people and dumb people everywhere. So it's just, I think, but you find out in the US just because, again, there's such a huge, they have such a huge, the US has such a huge political and cultural influence all over the world that it's sort of, and because, again, like it or not, it's just one of the countries that, it has a lot of people. So, chances are you're going to know an American at one point in your life. So it's sort of, oh, well, yeah, sure. And I think some of that actually that quite shocking to me as well was the fact that a lot of people do not really want to go. I mean, obviously moving there is a bit of a difference because, if I ask, hey, do you want to move to whatever country? It's sort of, well, maybe not. I don't know. I would have to think about this. But maybe as in, hey, do you want to go as in take, spend a season there or maybe, take a vacation there? I think that's more of an easy pill to swallow. I think a lot of people would go, yeah, sure, why not? It's just, a vacation, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But a lot of these people were absolutely not. I wouldn't even want to go there even for a week. It's sort of, oh my God, not even for a vacation. I think that's such a sad thing. Honestly, it makes me a little bit sad because I know maybe, maybe it shouldn't make me sad. And I know that technically it isn't that sad. But I know that obviously in Europe, you have so many things. As, there was, the woman that was mentioning it. Well, we vacation in France because obviously it's right next to them. So yes, in Europe, it's the great thing, amazing thing. You can travel all over so many different countries. And it's great. You have, available at your disposition. There's just so many countries and cultures that you can visit. And they're, a short, 40-minute ride or a 2-hour, airplane. Again, it's very, I know everything obviously is quite close together. So I get it. But at the same time, the United States also has a lot of good things to offer. Not as in the bad parts of the culture, the whole, they were saying, the super size me, the obesity, everything's big. No, it's not necessarily about that. Everything's bigger, which I think is really funny that they were mentioning everything just very big. Yeah, if you come from Europe, I could tell, my God, this, how you would see the US as this big sprawling thing. Because it is, but I think people in Europe have a very specific view because obviously their cities and their places are designed in a very specific way in which everything's sort of very small. So I could see, and that goes for everything, houses, roads, food, whatever, everything's sort of small and crammed together. And that's because, of course, I don't see anything weird with it because that's just how they were raised and this is the only thing they know. But in the US, it's the opposite, and it's always funny to me because I think the opposite happens. If you're American and you go to Europe, then you're thinking, oh my God, everything's so small, everything's so cramped together. It's just because you're used to the space, to sort of those big sprawling spaces. So it's really funny. They're mentioning, oh my God, everything's super big, and that includes, food and everything. Food, and that's another story, as in, yes, you see the they offered, she mentioned the popcorn. The popcorn is huge, and yes, sodas are ginormous, everything's just very big, everything comes everything's in excess and everything comes in this huge 12 cans, and hey, you want this, and it's just 6 cartons of milk, and everything's just very boxes and boxes of stuff, which I get it. I can see how that could be a little bit maybe repulsive or something, because I get it. It kind of is, right? It's just a lot of things. It's just an excess culture. But either way, if we're talking about landscapes and just, beautiful things and nice cities that you can visit, it's kind of makes me sad. And this is where I was going with, it's kind of makes me sad that, they're so close to the idea of, I wouldn't even want to go there. But maybe again, it's just a different perspective, because you're saying cities, if you're in Europe, you have available to you so many other cities and big cities and, little towns and villages that are gorgeous as well. So maybe I could see, why the US doesn't really appeal to you. Maybe the beaches, right? Although Europe also has good beaches, especially Spain. So I don't know. Maybe that's why, and even the US, because you have good beaches as well, So I don't know. Maybe I can, if I start thinking about this, maybe I can find logic in them being. I wouldn't want to go visit, because if I went little towns and charming villages, there's so many things available to me where I am in Europe that I wouldn't want to cross the Atlantic just to go there. And if we're talking cities, it's the same, right? You're not going to visit maybe New York or Chicago because you have other huge cities there. So why would you? Which, yeah, sure, great point. The more I think about this, probably the more I understand why they don't really go visit. They don't really go and visit the US. Maybe I have to start thinking about attractions as Mount Rushmore, although I don't really see why you would go there, especially not being from the US. That doesn't really have a lot of importance to you. Maybe Disney, or I know in Paris, they have one as well, but it's a little bit different. I think it's just you want to experience the whole American culture. You obviously have to go visit the US. If you like it or not, well, that's another story. But yeah, maybe I can see why so many of them are, I want to go. I don't want to visit. I'd rather spend my vacation days somewhere else. Which, a little sad, but kind of, I kind of get it. But yeah, this was a very interesting video. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!